Okay. I'm going to turn this volume down. Okay, and are we all ready to go? And okay, welcome to my studio. My name is Michael Markowsky, and I am going to be teaching a little bit about how to draw today. Today is episode lucky number 13 of my drawing course. And if you've just seen my face now for the very first time, there's 12 previous episodes that I've already filmed, and they're on YouTube for you to watch at your convenience. It's not required that you would watch those before we do what we're doing, but it will probably make a little bit more sense, and you'd probably find it a little bit easier to follow along. But for those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome. Today we're going to learn about how to draw the female body. So last week we learned how to draw the male body, and we learned the sort of heroic, ideal, Greco-Roman, god-like proportions that have been handed down to us 2,000 years ago. And so at the end of that class we did a drawing of Superman, which seemed kind of appropriate because when the Greeks and Romans who copied the Greeks sort of developed their kind of ideal Platonic form, it was this kind of very, like Zeus or Poseidon, these kind of very muscular kind of guys, right? So today we're going to learn how to draw the female figure, again following along these more idealized kind of shapes and forms. Although I think it's interesting to notice that what is sort of considered to be the ideal female figure has changed quite a lot over the years, back and forth and back and forth, to today, where there's this idea that the supermodel is really, really tall, super, super thin. Well, that certainly has not been the case, especially if we go back to the time period that these ideas first began. The Romans and the Greeks saw a much more voluptuous female figure as the ideal. And if you think about just human history, the people that were maybe a little bit larger were considered to be the more powerful people in the society, because that meant you had a really reliable source of food and that you were really healthy. So things have kind of changed over the years, especially when it comes to the female figure. So I just thought that a little bit of clarification right off the top. So we're going to learn the basic proportions of the female figure, and then from there, then we can do all sorts of things to the figure to create different kinds of characters. And we're going to draw, I think we'll following the Wonder Woman thing, maybe we'll draw, or sorry, following Superman last week, we're going to draw Wonder Woman today. So a couple of little superheroes. And I thought maybe before we even get to there, it's a good idea to do a little bit of a quick warm-up drawing here. So, I'm going to flip through some images. I have a few images of an artist that I think is just amazing. Her name is, I'm going to bring this up here. Her name is Julie Doucet, and she is I'm not sure where she's based today. She is originally from Quebec, Canada, and I think from Montreal. And here's a self-portrait she did. It looks like it's probably done on like a wood block or a lino cut, which is like carving into a block to make a print. But she's most famous for her comic books and maybe a little bit more adult-oriented material. Well, definitely a lot more adult-oriented material, so maybe not for the younger viewers out there. But you could see her drawing style is very, you know, it's kind of cartoony or comic booky. But as opposed to drawing Wonder Woman, like I was talking about doing later on, her style, her kind of the subject matter is very personal, intimate stories of her life, of her relationships with her boyfriends and her family, and her kind of travels around the world. So kind of my first introduction to her was a book called My New York Diary, which I highly recommend. It's fantastic. It's about her moving to New York as a young woman. I think she's probably in her early 20s, from Quebec, and kind of the little bit of the culture clash between English and French cultures. Not even, this might be from that that series. So this is, you can find this at the library or any comic book shop or order it online. But I just think it's, you know, especially since the idea of what comic books are generally this idea of superheroes and for young male audiences, that is really changing. When I was a kid, that was, you would never see a woman in a comic book shop, and there was very few comic books for women. Even Wonder Woman was kind of for young boys, really. Not necessarily even for young girls, so it was all full of bizarre stereotypes. Versus now, it's especially comics that kind of skew towards younger people, like young adult comics are actually probably 60 or 70% geared towards young women and girls. So anyway, I'm just, no one's really interested in hearing my rant about all this. But what I do want to do is a quick warm-up drawing based on her art, since I find her so inspiring. And what would be a good one? It would be I think, trying to see which. So there's a whole bunch, obviously lots of images on the web. What would, I think maybe this first, her self-portrait, we could do this as a warm-up drawing. So I'm just going to change a setting here on this camera above, and let's, oh, I need both those views up simultaneously. So let me think. I got to make a new split screen here. So I'm going to move this here, and that there. Okay. Does that look about right? Okay, so I'm going to drag this down, and I'm just going to brighten. It's definitely. Okay, so let's get out your pencils and your paper, and we'll blast into this drawing. Okay, so to begin, we're going to learn about how to draw portraits in a couple of weeks. But so for today, we're just going to do a quick warm-up. So I'm going to draw the head, and this will be a little bit of a preview of what we're going to do. Let's divide this face, this line in half, and then this in half. So these are kind of equal spaces here, up and down. And then on here, we're going to draw a couple of kind of almond shapes there. Is that, are you able to see that? Is that, just making sure. This might be a little bit dark. Darken that down. Okay. And then we just got this nose, which is going to come, so halfway between the middle of the face and the chin is the nose. I'm going to put this little line down here. And so this is her nose kind of coming up. Like this. And then halfway between the nose and the chin is going to be our lips. So I'm putting this little line down here, and we're going to go up and down and up. And then her lips coming down and around. Now, this is definitely more advanced. We haven't even really talked about portraiture yet, so maybe, so this is just, again, our warm-up drawing. You can see now I just extended a little bit here, her chin. I'm going to put some circles for her irises in her eye. And then you see there's like a little cookie bite taken out of them there. We got her eyebrows. And then we've got some hair. So I'm drawing the kind of the part on her hair first. Now her hair has volume, right? So it's not right. We're gonna have to kind of build. Well, maybe that's a little bit too much, but that's okay. It's our warm-up drawing. You can make her hair as big as you want. Let me see what we came. Her ear. So ears are technically in between the nose and the eye. So they would technically fit under here, but she's kind of drawn hers a little bit higher. So we'll just follow her drawing. And, you know, she had her hair kind of coming down in behind her ear. So I'll follow her lead. And I'm drawing her neck coming down here. And then you see she's got the way that she's drawn her shoulders. It's kind of just a straight right across. And then her arms kind of coming down. Arms coming down here. So also I'm using this wireless microphone again, and hopefully it's not causing the ruffling sounds that it did last time. So let me know if it is. I'd be very curious to hear if there's any ongoing problems. So, you know, I'm just kind of going a little bit ahead here. I don't expect everybody to be drawing as fast as I am. This is just our warm-up drawing, just to kind of get into the zone here. So if I've got my basic sketch here on paper, so looking to see if this is visible to everybody here. Then I am going to use a Sharpie. Well, maybe I'm going to use some colored pencils. I'm going to use a Sharpie, but let's say I'm going to use this just kind of a dark blue. So then I'm going to kind of go over some lines. And I'm not paying too close attention. I'm not really too worried about getting what's called a likeness in this drawing. Otherwise, I'd maybe spend a little bit more attention trying to get the shape of her eyes. I'm not really concerned about that with this drawing. I'm just, like you guys, warming up at home, right? So I'm using her drawing of herself as inspiration, just to get my creative juices flowing in my hands and connecting my eyes to my hands. So if you've just got a face on there and it doesn't particularly look like the drawing, then look, mine doesn't quite either, right? So we're all in the same boat here. Okay. So this is kind of like one of the exercises that I suggested to people a few times, which is to find an artist that you admire and then to try to draw a little bit in their style. So I find, oops, so you can see she did her jaw a little bit, kind of a little bit more square, whereas I kind of rounded it out a bit. But again, I'm going to try to keep my own advice to not fiddle too much on a warm-up drawing. So I got her ears and this hair. I don't know if I'll color all this hair in, but I got this little. Julie Doucet is also, that comic book that she drew, you know, kind of catapulted her into fame. She's definitely, I don't know what she's been up to recently. I don't really follow the news in the comic industry, so I'm not sure what she's been up to, but she definitely became very well known because of her comics and kind of reputation is like in terms of her style, and she was quite prolific for a period of time, kind of like the Robert Crumb of kind of contemporary comics. And if you know who Robert Crumb is, he's still around. A comic book artist in the kind of beginning in the 60s, you know, with Fritz the Cat, and but just that his comics often featured himself, and then his kind of like Woody Allen, like neurotic kind of ramblings and anxieties. And so I'm just going to spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes here. I'm kind of going over some of her stylistic shading that she's got here. And so this is going to make this drawing that I've just done look a little bit more like her drawing here. Which is really fun. Like, you know, before I started even just putting those lines in, like you could see how much this drawing just changed, right? And, you know, especially people of a certain age who, like myself, who don't really, you know, who grew up with comic books being mostly for boys, things, again, have really changed. And if you're, one of the things I'm trying to do with this, by teaching, is obviously to introduce people to different things and to, you know, broaden the horizons. I would encourage you to kind of take another look and see and look into people like Julie, and you know, if there's, because I just think her stories were were really inspiring. They kind of reminded me of, you know, of just even my own experiences being young. And I also went to New York when I was really young, and so it's just kind of interesting reading a similar kind of experience, but through the eyes of a woman as opposed to my own eyes. And I think the more that we read things from different people's points of views, I think that's can only be a good thing. Okay. I think, do I want to color her hair in? Okay, I'll do it as quickly as possible because I know some people are still drawing, and I always feel bad when I move on and people are like, no, I'm still working on something. Well, obviously, you know, you can pause this video. You can even pause it right now if you wanted, right? And work on it, even while we're streaming here live, right? Because it'll just keep on recording, and then when you're done, you can press play again, and we're still here. Okay. Even just, you know, adding a little bit of color to, or some shade in here to her hair, you know, it starts changing this drawing too. Like before that, her hair looked, when we don't color her hair in, it kind of makes her look blonde, right? By adding some darkness on it, her hair changes color, which I know sounds super obvious, but the thing is that, you know, hair is such an important part of a person's face, right? That when people are drawing portraits, it often is you know, people wait till the very end to draw the hair, and they're getting frustrated with the way the face looks, and I'll come around and say, just draw the hair in, or color the hair in, make the hair darker. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, oh, that actually made quite the difference. Now I actually see the face, you know, so it's not that the eyes were wrong or the ears were too big. It's just that this major part of the face wasn't there. So, okay. So that's our drawing of based on Julie Doucet's self-portrait. So I'd be really interested to see or hear what your result was for this drawing. I'm just going to bring this down here. And I think we're ready to begin our next, our real drawing, because that's a good warm-up. That was a pretty healthy 20-minute long warm-up here. So I am going to switch gears here to the female, the figure. Okay. So, oops. Let's get this other screen back up here. Where'd it go? Okay. So on your screen now, you see this, what's called a turnaround. And so we have the female body from 5 different points of view. I have also edited out some parts there that could get this video taken down. So it's as tasteful as possible while still being having as much information there as possible. So I think you can use your imagination to figure out what is missing there. Anyway, so this is the female figure, and I've also overlapped it with the male figure here. So here's the male body, and which we were drawing on last Tuesday. So you can see the difference here that basically the body is, in the male figure we talked about an 8 head tall figure. Here we have a 7.5 head tall figure. So we've just made the body half a head shorter. Now the head is staying the same size in proportion to the rest of the body. It's just that really one of the main changes here is the length of the legs and the arms. A lot of the torso is still kind of in the same height or length. It's you could see when I overlap these here that, and we'll talk about this as we start drawing, but you could see the length of the hands, right? The wrists kind of start in different places, and you can see the feet come down further. Now, again, once you learn these basic principles, you could make these legs much longer, or you could make them shorter, you could make the arms longer or shorter. That's all part of but you have to kind of learn this before you can kind of move on. You can also see that the reason why we began with the male figure is just because it's a little bit easier to kind of understand, like this 8 head tall thing, and everything kind of falls nicely on these lines, right? So we have the kind of the male nipples are going to be here on this. This would be line number 2 in the way that we were drawing. The belly button's just under this line. The wrist begins right at the midway point. Knees are just a little bit above, right? So everything kind of is just, it fits nicely into this. The female figure, however, is a little bit more complex in that, you know, these knees are now in between here. The heels are halfway, right? So that's why it's helpful to know the male figure first. Okay, so all right, if we're ready, so let's get our sketchbook, and I want to see, how did I draw the male figure last time? I had, I think, a pink and a blue. So I'm just going to try to relatively, is this the same blue? Kind of, I think. Just to try to keep some level of consistency in these drawings here. I think these were the two, I think. Anyway, okay. So let's take our sketchbook, go to a blank page, and then I'm going to replace my own image with my hand above here. So, okay. And let's, I'm just gonna, where's my mouse? Okay, move that down here. Okay, so again, I just wanted to say before we even begin that what we're talking about is the most basic introduction possible to drawing the female figure. I know there's going to be some people out there who have been drawing comic books or whatever for, you know, a decade, and they're going to say, "Whoa, like, you know, like, you're oversimplifying." Well, yeah, I am oversimplifying things. That's the point, right? Because I think for most of you watching, this is going to be the very first time you've ever done anything like this. So we're going to build this in gently, and then I think the way that I want to do these courses is we'll revisit this maybe a few months from now, and we'll do a much more complicated, we'll go even to the skeletal system. Okay, so to begin with, I put a line on the top and the bottom. Just like the previous version, I didn't want to kind of go right up to the edge here. Okay, now I'm going to draw a line right down the middle to divide it. And, you know, one of the things, I'll just kind of go back up here. I'm going to put a line halfway across. I often find, like, especially because while I'm drawing here, I'm trying to keep my head out of the camera view. So it tends to be the head gets very small at the top, like, because I accidentally put my, I'm not dividing it right exactly in the middle. So everything, just because it looks, because it's far away. Anyway, that's just maybe a thought I should keep to myself. But so if you can kind of get your head a little bit closer over to the middle, and then again, I eyeball all this. You could use a ruler if you have to, but the point is not to get to be perfect. It's to understand the principles of this. Okay, so we've got, again, I should bookmark this here. Just put up another pencil because I keep flipping. I just want to make sure I'm using the same colors because it'd be nice to have them side by side maybe at some point. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to draw the head here. And you could draw the exact same size of head as here. It's not, you know, this body could be fully in proportion, but when it's standing next to the other, to this male figure, it could be half the size or twice the size, right? So we're not comparing it necessarily back to that original. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a couple more heads on either side, just to help us getting the proportions in. Next thing I'm going to do is dividing this in half. This is going to be where our shoulders are. All right. Now, when we did the male figure, we had, you know, heads on either side, and then, oh, you know, I did this. I drew in the pink, so maybe I'll go back to the pink and then I'll go around these lines. So when we did the male figure, we had, this was the shoulders. When we're drawing the female figure, the head is, the shoulders are halfway in here, right? So this is the torso, and then we're going to draw this all the way down. We can also draw the neck in here, right? And then we have just, you know, the male figure was much broader, and we have these big shoulders coming up, right? We don't, unless you're a super muscle-bound woman, we're not going to have that kind of effect here. Okay, so this is where the shoulders are going to connect, and I'm just going to draw these kind of shoulder joints here. And then I'm going to draw a line going down here. So these are going to be where the arms are going to go. The elbows are going to be sort of just, if you think of this as kind of center, the elbows are just a little bit past here. Right, and then I'm going to do these little sausage shapes here. The bigger these are, the bulkier the figure is ultimately going to be, of course, right? Are you sure is that? I just want to make sure this is in focus here. Where do I have something? This is a children's book I made. Making sure. Okay. And then we have the wrists, which again begin, you know, basically the wrist kind of begins right before this line and on the line here. So we have these forearms. Okay. And then the hands, I kind of make these, kind of looks like a boat or something. And then the thumbs coming out on either side. Oh, you know, I forgot to do is to label here. So I usually kind of go X, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So the number 4 line is the middle. The belly button is right about on number 3 there. Okay. Trying to be mindful. I've had some people say that when I did the male body, I was going a little fast, so I'm just trying to go nice and slow. So we're going to draw the breasts up here. Okay. And then we would have our nipples are going to be right about here. Okay. You can also draw kind of the core of the figure. If you're going to do like a 6-pack kind of thing here, is going to take place inside here. Next thing I'm going to do here for the crotch is I'm going to put a little V shape in here. All right, so this also tells us where the legs are going to begin. And if I take these lines up here, this is kind of where the top of the hips are. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is imagine here these are going to be thighs. I'm going to draw these thighs up here. Let me see. What have I done here? Oops. I think, sorry. This is where I want the knee to be. So sorry, my apologies. This, we're going to kind of shorten these legs a little bit. Now, if we wanted to make it a little bit more of a heroic, so the feet are going to come down to here, so 7.5 height. And then here's our calf muscles. We're going to draw this again for our final drawing today, so don't get too worried if we're going too fast or anything. So this, you know, people talk about this kind of hourglass figure. If you want, you can kind of trim that in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go over top of this this drawing here. Got the neck, and then our shoulders. All right, and then we're going to come right down. And our hands. And then I'm going to come back up. And then here on the torso you could see, this is the same thing on the male body, kind of where the chest kind of overlaps a little bit onto where onto the arms. I'm going to come down on this side. Okay. And then outlining here on the legs. Okay. I'm going to do a whole class just on like feet and hands and all that kind of stuff too. So, so if we wanted, yeah, I think that's pretty good here, just for our basic kind of introduction to the female figure here. Now, again, we could make this more voluptuous by making these hips kind of coming out. We could make these thighs thinner or wider. You know, the biceps big, shoulders. You know, we can go on and on, right? But I think for our basic purpose here, that's going to work. Okay. So let's. I'm going to maybe just wait for a minute here while I wait for people to kind of catch up. Did I do anything else on this original image here? Again, this is the male figure, the female figure. When I'm teaching in university, well, we would actually begin with like the skeleton, and we would build up from the skeleton, and you can really see kind of the shape of the hips and the rib cage and all that kind of stuff. But we don't really have that. That would be a little bit overwhelmed if I started there. For a lot of people, that would be way too much, wouldn't it? Okay, just want to see while you guys are working on that. So Heidi says, is it possible to get those pictures emailed to me, the two forms, mail and... yeah, well, I want, eventually I'm on my website, I'll have kind of resources for downloading all of these things, and I just a little bit overwhelmed trying to get everything done and building the studio and everything, so I will provide all these details. But for now, I think if you're able just to draw from the images you see here, that would be, I mean, because I also don't want to overwhelm people with like, draw what you know, this actual handout could be. This is what I give to my university students. So, okay. Oh, you know what I wanted? I was going to say we're doing great on time, but I want to do the side view too. We haven't gotten there. So let's go to the next page. And we're going to do the same sort of thing, but the side view of this image. Okay. So let's start again by creating this little grid. Okay, and then I'm going to divide it in half, and then in half again, just gonna, this is our number 4, and dividing each half in half to make quarters. So then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, X. Okay. Just wait here for okay. So next what I want to do is we're gonna draw the profile here. So to start, I'm going to draw this head. So we've got you can even take this and then just rotate it so that we've got, you know, as if this went out here. Okay. One thing, even just while we're here, on like the male body, the chin, you know, the jaw is a little bit more square. On the female body, it's gonna, anyway, we'll get to there when we talk about those proportions. Oops, neck. Here's the top of the shoulders. So just like we did with the male body here, we're going to create this cashew or kidney bean kind of thing here. So we're going to draw this kind of thing, right? If anything, when I afterwards looking at it, like, this makes this guy look like he's got a bit of a big butt, right? Technically, his shoulders should be aligned. I don't know why I made this mistake, but his shoulders should be aligned here. This is actually more like what we're going to do today, that the male figure's kind of, not that I am anywhere near the ideal, but if I was kind of a more bulkier guy, had better posture, my shoulders would kind of come out and maybe even go further back than my posterior here, right? Let me see, just like, so you can kind of see in this drawing here how the shoulders are aligned with the butt, right? Versus in the female figure, right, it's kind of a little bit more front forward. All right, so you can decide how much junk in the trunk your, or sorry, here we are, your figure is going to have, all right? So we've got our little kidney bean here. So the next thing we're going to do is, if we imagine, you know, on the last drawing here, we had the elbows are roughly about halfway, right? So I'm going to make a little line here. So if this is our shoulder joint right here, and this is where our elbows would be, right? If I had an arc that was kind of coming up, because we're going to do like we did with the male body. It looks like it's a little bit wide, so it'd be something like this. So let's say we have this arm is coming out this way. We're going to have this arm coming out that way. So let's say we'll do this one coming out here. So we're going to, okay, so this would be the elbow joint, and then we've got here. And then we had the wrist, if it was along the side. And this isn't, you don't have to, if I wanted, let's see, again, I could get a ruler and I could say, okay, this is 9 centimeters from kind of interior point to interior point. And then we go 9 centimeters, and then so, you know, like, or if you want the inches, we could do, what would, you know, your drawings would be all different. But I'm not, you know, so concerned with that, like getting it all perfect like that. This kind of, it reminds me a lot of Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. Okay, so we've got this arm. This is actually going to be the yeah, those will be the front arm, and then we're going to have this other arm here, and then the wrist. Okay, so this is just our I'm gonna go over top of this whole drawing with you. I'm just sketching in the basics here. So then we have, if these are our hips right here, and then the knees are in between 5 and 6. We have this here. We have our calves. And then our feet come down to just after 7 here. Okay. And I think the last drawing I also did, I had like the leg bent up. So we had, this is our knee. Think of this being the knee. And this is kind of hanging down. So you can even kind of think, okay, well, if that's hanging down here, this is going to kind of come down. Okay. So let's, oh, and then, so if this is, her breast would be somewhere around here like that. Okay. So I'm going to outline this head. And so I'm kind of outlining and then drawing right into the body. Everything's kind of these flowing lines. So we've got this arm is going to come back here. And which way should that arm be? I guess maybe this hand should be like that. That makes more sense. And then often, like, artists will draw female legs and feet very small. You know, it's a kind of convention, you know, to make women look really dainty and tiny, and which, you know, can also have kind of certain kind of political overtones for, right? So here's this arm. So that is kind of hidden behind the chest here. Now, not everybody has like, again, and like I've said before, I kind of exaggerate things a little bit. Even if you're looking at the image to the right of the screen, things aren't kind of quite as dramatic as what I've drawn here. But I find it helpful to, you know, exaggerate the figure a little bit while you're drawing. And then you can always taper it down a little bit to, so this hand I think should come out a little bit further, but I think we're, or maybe it's hard to say. Okay, so let's, well, maybe I'll just wait a second here. Again, this leg is raised. It's just, I don't want anybody to think, yeah, just want to make like there's a box or something right here. Okay. So, are we ready to move on to the final drawing of the day? Is there anything else I want to note here that I did or didn't do? Okay. Maybe I'll keep this up because I haven't actually found the picture that I want to use for the for Wonder Woman yet. So I'm going to move this into place and kind of maybe while people are browsing. So again, like you could see how people play with proportions. Right, like look at this. I think this is from what do they call Batman the cartoon or the animated series. Like, look how long they've made her legs here. Like, you know, if this would be right here would be our number 4 line, right? So they've compressed her kind of torso quite dramatically, right? And this talk about this is a most ridiculous, like Barbie-sized kind of torso, right? Very narrow here. And then her legs are, you know, maybe an extra head longer than normal. So they've taken a head out of the torso in terms of length and added it to, you know, probably the lower part of her legs. What are some other versions here? I'm trying to find one of her just standing. We're kind of getting a little bit closer back to kind of a bit of a normal. You can see her legs look kind of more here. Here's a version of Linda Carter. It's also, I find, like whenever I'm trying to find these images of women just standing, they're always kind of doing this kind of a pose here, putting weight on one hip. So how about we're gonna draw, maybe I'm gonna I'm gonna drag this photo here. I'm gonna keep that up. Okay. So, are we ready to move on to our final drawing of the day? I'm gonna go to a blank piece of paper here, and we're gonna draw the basics over again. And again, this is the basics. So, in order just to kind of convey this, the human body is such a complicated thing. So I'm trying to kind of narrow it down to its most kind of simple possible. And so we're going to start this again. Let's draw a line on the top and along the bottom. And then we're going to divide right down the middle. I'm going to draw a line, horizontal line across, and then I'm going to just darken this. This is going to be the middle line. And then divide into quarters. I'm going to X out the top and bottom. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4 being the main one. Okay. So let's start with a head, right? The 7 and a, maybe I should even divide this down. So this is where the feet are ultimately going to go, right down to that line there. Okay, and then we had 2 heads on either side that we divided in half to get the torso. All right, and then we're going to divide between 1 and 2 in half. All right, her belly button is going to be here. All right, this is going to be where the shoulders are going to go. Maybe I'll just wait a second. Okay, here's where we have our neck and the shoulders. Okay, and then the chest is right in here. We've got the shoulder joints, and let me think about if we want to do this pose like in the image. I guess we could do this. Okay, so let's just draw. Right, so if we think about if this arm was loose, right, the elbow would be down here, halfway in between. Oh, oops. What happened here? Okay. Here, just give me 1 second. I got a battery that just died on me. Some batteries last longer than others, I'm finding. Okay, I think that restores things to their proper order. Okay. So this would be where the elbow would go, right? And that if this arm's on the same, bent in the same way, it's going to go there, right? And it looks like her hands are right at the kind of the top of her hips, kind of near her belly button here. Okay, so then we've got her wrists and hands. You're kind of making this little fist on either end here. So just kind of make sure everybody sees where we're at. All right, okay, so now I'm gonna give these my little sausage shapes here. Okay, so you can see in this image here, quite dramatic, you know, the hourglass figure in here, right? Kind of making very, you know, like this, that proportion looks very uncomfortably thin. I'm going to draw it like we see in the image, and then maybe we'll see what I want to do here. And then if these are our legs coming down, our knees are about halfway. All right, so we got and then our calves going to come down halfway again. And then her feet, and again, just for simplicity, they're kind of pointing outward like that. Right now, it does, in this, the image we're looking at on screen, her hips are kind of on an angle, right, which kind of shifts some of the weight, right? So this would mean we're not going to do that because that's, I think, a little bit more complicated for most people. So I think I'm going to kind of draw this in as if she's just kind of standing without kind of any particular kind of a pose here. So if we're ready from this point, I'm going to move forward. Maybe just give a little second here for anyone to catch up who's a little bit behind. So this looks like the original Linda Carter character from the kind of 70s, 80s. I don't think I saw this on TV when it originally ran, but I certainly saw, whatchamacallit, reruns and that kind of thing. Actually, these arms should be a little bit longer here. I'm just looking at this drawing. So those, we'll fill this in when we get to it here, but I just was looking at that, and proportionally those were a little bit short. Okay, so let's go back in and kind of outline things. So we got her right to her elbows. Right, and then her hands. And I think I will kind of keep this. Yeah, I'm not gonna do too dramatic of a. Okay. Okay. So maybe while I'm right here, what I can do is start kind of putting her costume on. All right, she's got these like super high-waisted kind of pants, or what would you call these, kind of trunks, I guess. And then these big boots. Kind of like our Superman. What else here? Okay, coming up. You know, one of the, I guess, absurd conventions of comic books is, you know, when we're drawing the female figure, is to kind of overemphasize the chest a little bit, which is, you know, pretty ridiculous. But so you're welcome to create your female figure in whatever kind of proportions you want. Maybe as I go here, depending on how quickly I've never drawn Wonder Woman before. I've looked at this kind of imagery on her armor, or whatever this thing is. It's an eagle or something. Okay, never looked too closely. Okay. So, oh, and of course her famous tiara. I guess it's supposed to be red, isn't it? So even here, you know, like even just before putting that in, it felt like there was a problem with that head, but it's just because we don't have any hair in here yet, right? Can't quite see exactly what her hair, got this really big hair. We're not going to draw too much of her facial features, but something's weird here. I think this, the way I've drawn this shoulder is, that part of the body is a little bit wider on one side, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm gonna, I guess, and there's all those little stars on her outfit here. So maybe I'm not going to put as many of them on there because that's going to take me forever to color. So I'm just going to add, let's say, like 5 or so of them. Okay. And then I'm just going to color this in really quickly. And then I think what I will do is just, do I want to draw? Well, let me think. I'll see how long this takes, and then I'll decide if there's an extra little quick drawing I want to do just to demonstrate something. Is that all the blue in there? I got, let's get the actual red out. Red in the boots. Our next class on Thursday, we're going to learn a different approach to figure drawing. It's kind of different than what we've been doing so far, which may or may not be helpful to people. I think most people, when I've taught this to, even to quite advanced artists, find it kind of revelatory. It works really well for drawing from life, for drawing what you see in front of you. So less so from drawing from imagination and more from drawing from life. So we'll do that on Thursday. If you're liking these videos and you want to support my channel, you're welcome to make a donation via PayPal or Interact Transfer. I'll put my email in there as well if you want to do it that way. And your support is very much appreciated. I'm not sure if, is this white or is this yellow? I don't know what color. I guess in the photo it's white stripes on her shoes. Keep it like that. Is that, maybe I'll just darken this a little bit here. Yeah, I think, okay, so we're at 5:20, so an hour and a half already in here. Where did my original go? So I'm just looking at some comments just while we're drawing here. So Peter says, can you suggest a tool or method of drawing the half circle to judge the length of the arms for the side view drawings? Well, you could use a compass if you wanted to, in order to do that. I don't use a compass. Often if I'm trying to because I think what you're talking about is like, how do I get these lengths correct? You know, what I would often do is just use a pencil, and I'll just kind of like, let's say I want to get this here. I can just kind of hold that and be like, okay, that's there, right? Or you could use, I guess I always, I do a lot of my work while I'm kind of traveling, and I want the kind of as least tools in my bag. You know, I've flown a lot in the plane, and a compass is not something that people are. So it's, you know, if I want the length of the arm, let's say you can go here. Here's where the wrist. So we can even verify how closely. Yeah, pretty much on there. Yeah, right there. So that's kind of the easiest way, is just sort of measuring just with your pencil to kind of get things into the zone. Okay. And then Heidi says, I know it's been a while since we did Still Life, but I finally finished the one you sent over. Oh, okay. Oh, so Heidi was talking about a drawing that she did over, that we probably looked at a little while ago, and then her next one is going to be a human figure. That's exciting. So I don't know if anybody sent me any drawings over Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. The links are below. I don't think they're there, so it doesn't look like there's anything for me to draw or to give you feedback on. But if you did want to send me something that you wanted me to talk about for next episode, just send it over Twitter and you know, tag me in the photo, or send it as a direct message, or you know, I mean, you all know how to use the web and everything, so I'm not gonna, but then I can put them up on the screen and we can talk about the cool drawings you've made. And so maybe this is a good time for me just to mention, just for next week, next class, to, if you're to kind of prepare for next class, is to find some images of female bodies. And if you can find one of just like somebody standing front and the side, and to try to draw those images. Try to, you know, just using the very basic kind of style that we've been learning today, right? Don't overwhelm yourself. Like, so, how about, like, for instance, what I would do, let's say, if I wanted to find other figures to draw, I'm just going to move, well, let me keep that there. Hopefully these will all be safe for work, right? So, okay, so here's, you could see different images we could use for drawing. And maybe is this gonna load, or it's still loading? So maybe, like, since I don't have anything to review, why don't I could do a quick drawing. Let's say just of a different body shape here. So I'm going to take this image and let's, come on, because I think it would be nice to, I'm kind of sick of the dominant female ideal that is out there. So let's do another, where's my pages here? Oh, that's the wrong one. I want, where did, Okay, so I'm going to try doing a little bit of a version of this. This woman's body here. So let's start again here. You don't have to follow along if you don't want. Maybe I'll draw a little bit faster just for people's sake. So let's divide. And this is here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, X. Okay. So this is our head. All right. And again, we're going to go on either side here. And it's, even if we're, regardless of whatever shape of body, I'm still going to build like the structure the same, right? So we've got the torso. Okay, so I'm going to illustrate, I'm going to put the basics in here, and then I'm just going to kind of expand things a little bit just so you can see. And I may even do the same thing with the male body, because I don't want to be people like, well, how come you just drew one female body like this, but you didn't do a dad bod? My own body shape for the, so maybe I'll do something like that depending on how much time we have here. Okay, so this is our basic structure, right? We can and we had, previous, like Wonder Woman, her kind of hips being like this, right? So for this image here, all right, we're going to have a little bit larger chest, all right? And I'm just expanding these lines outward, all right? When I'm teaching drawing, I really like bringing models in who have different body shapes. You'd be like, at the university, there's actually very few muscle-bound men and women who do the figure modeling. It's generally people of all sorts of different shapes and sizes, including a lot of older people. Which I think is a lot more fun to draw. All right, so I'm just going to see widening the face just a little bit. All right. And so I think what I'm trying to show right here is that once you understand these basic principles, we can create, pretty much we can illustrate anybody. We don't have to be kind of trapped into these kind of stereotyped, images of the body. All right. Well, do I want to? I'll do. Let me just put a little. I'll do her clothing on here. She does have a really nice big long hair, so let's give her some nice big flowing hair. You know, in the original photo, again, her hips are kind of on an angle here, and so I'm just kind of straightening her body out a bit like that. Now, again, I could okay. So this is a version of a less idealized. Well, this would be closer towards your kind of Greco-Roman ideal of the female figure. If you look at historically, like the very first depiction of the female body or amongst the very first that we have, the Venus of Willendorf, which you could look that up. That is a very kind of round kind of torso. So let's see. We're going to draw more of this kind of a dad bod dude. We've got our legs. So I'm drawing a male figure now. A little bit larger fellow. Right, and so we've got, like I do, a little bit of extra on the sides here. So, in fact, how about let's just find an image of right, so here you have a bit of a larger kind of guy, but maybe he's not such a muscle-bound figure here. Kind of a rounder shape head, neck. Oh, I just lost battery in another camera here. Looks like my about an hour and a half is when all these batteries start to kind of die on me here. All right. I think this head looks a little bit smaller, but Anyway, I think I've lost power in one of the cameras, and we are kind of about that time of the session anyway, where I think, oops, come on, what happened here? Where I think I will call it a class, just no point in changing the battery for just a couple more seconds. So for next week is to find some images of the female body and to try to draw those pictures. And yeah, just don't spend too much time worrying about, because we're talking about something that's kind of complicated, but looking for images like I was doing just on the web there, just doing a quick search and see if you can transfer, the clothing or style onto the basic grid that we've learned over the past couple, 2 or 3 classes here. So until we talk again on Thursday, good luck on your artwork. Stay home and try not to spend too much time in large crowds, and stay safe, and we will see you guys on Thursday. Okay, everybody, have yourself a wonderful afternoon. We'll talk to you soon.